of this. Just a quick introduction of myself. Rob ten Crode. I work for WEM. And within WEM, I'm responsible for, I guess, everything that has not to do with development and has nothing to do with the actual sales of the product. So I take care of all product management, all pre and after sales consulting, training, etc., etc., etc. So I've been working with Cheno a lot to get WEM introduced into the Asia Pacific market. And what I will do in the next, well, whatever time that you guys have, the next 45 minutes to an hour, I will give you an introduction into WEM. So I'll have a couple of slides just to talk about what WEM actually is. And then I will do a very small demo just to give you an idea, a short introduction of how WEM works, what it looks like, and how easy it is to build applications with WEM. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. I'll start with sharing my screen so that you can actually see something. I think I somehow can't share my screen.
Cheno, can you make him the presenter?
Yeah, I am now. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So you should be able to see my screen now. If someone can confirm that, just to make sure that we all see the same thing.
Yep, I can see your screen.
Yeah, good. So, perfect. So I'll just do a couple of slides and talk a little bit about WEM, about the market, etc. What we see happening today, and is actually accelerating incredibly in the last, I would say, 3, 4, 5 months, is the following. There is a market for what we call low-code and no-code platforms. What that means is environments that help you to develop software a lot faster. And there are all sorts of different approaches, which I will get into. Just some of the quotes here. Gartner thinks that, well, let's say a lot of the software, I'm not sure if the 50% by 2020 is correct, but Gartner thinks that lots of the applications will be built using these sort of platforms. Similar idea from IDC. Forrester has the exact same impression. If you read all the reports, you'll see that by, let's say, halfway through to 2020, so like 2025, 2026, that most of the software, most of the applications that are being built will be built by low-code or no-code platforms, which means that traditional coding, it's not going to go away entirely, but it's going to be less and less of a factor. There's a nice quote there at the bottom. That there was also an interesting article about Forbes, and there was a quote in there that said something like, imagine that you have an application that takes you a year to build and costs you $1 million. What if you can bring that down to maybe 8 weeks and a small team of 3 or 4 people, $50,000, and get actually better quality and a lot faster response of your applications. Now, these are the things that we're looking at. This is what our market is. So if you look at this from a historical point of view, where were we in the past? We have let's call them hardcore developers that code by hand, right? That's what you do today. You may use some tools, but it's still traditional development. And we've been doing that for a long, long time. Then about, I'd say, 10, 15 years ago, the first players in this market, the larger players by now, entered the market, and they were coming out with tools that made it a little bit easier for developers to build their software. So some things were automated. There was some visual tools there. I guess all of that happened until about 2 years ago. That was still the only thing that was out there. So what was needed there was still programming knowledge. You would still need to have in-depth knowledge of the technology. You would still need developers, but the developers would be a lot more efficient. That's what the promise is of these environments, the low-code environments. Make developers more efficient. And then the last 2-3 years, something new is popping up, and that's where we are. And that is the market of the no-code tools. So we actually have a platform where you can develop software, whether that is a traditional desktop application or a mobile application, doesn't matter. But you don't need any coding whatsoever. In fact, you can't even code using our platform. So the technical expertise that you need is pretty low. And you do find that this works best if you have quite a lot of the business logic, the business know-how, right? If you are a very technical person, you know how to code in, I don't know, C#, but you have no idea how that particular business logic works. If I'm a process analyst, I have no idea what C# even means, but I do know how my processes work. And these people are actually using no-code platforms to build applications themselves. Way faster than it used to be done, higher quality, and obviously at a lower cost. So, and that's the space where we are active. So we are, I think Gartner calls it an HPAAS, an application platform. No, sorry, HAPAS, a high performance application platform as a service, something like that. Anyway, we just have a tool, an environment to build applications. So what is it that we address? Well, if you look at the trends and the things that are happening today, this is where we are all active. This is where WEM and the WEM features can help you. Whether that is the digitalization that's happening, whether you want to use blockchain technology, Internet of Things is a big thing. You want to work with big data. Edge computing is something that you need or interested in. Serverless computing, it doesn't really matter. Whatever it is that you want, WEM has a way of working with it. A very interesting one is Shadow IT, as you can see there. With Shadow IT, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term. Some people call it rogue IT. What's meant with that is that what you see within certainly enterprises is that the business needs particular support, need applications. They could go to their IT department. The IT department either doesn't have time, doesn't have the money, isn't willing, doesn't give priority, whatever, to help the business. So what is the business doing? You know what? Let's take a spreadsheet and we'll create something based on Excel. Or maybe if they're really advanced, they are going to use Microsoft Access, for instance. So now you have the whole business team that is developing their own tools, if you will. No one supports it. It's not being tested. Corporate data is being stored in there. IT doesn't know anything about it. That's an area where we actually solve a lot of the problems, because we can give the business the tools to build something in the right way with all of the quality, where IT can actually have control over it as well. So these are just some of the trends where we are all active. Now I have some customers here. These are I just realized that this is a Dutch slide. So you will see here, mainly Dutch customers. But to give you an idea of the companies that we're talking to, that you would know today, we're talking to companies like AT&T or Vodafone, KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, Malaysian Telecom, I think. Lots of the telecom providers like BT, TalkTalk. Many of the enterprises that are out there are now looking at WEM and incorporating that in their business, which means that it's an environment that we have that allows you to build all sorts of applications, right? If you look at this, VGZ, as you see up there, it's one of our largest customers. It's actually a large enterprise here in the Netherlands, tens of thousands of users. It's a health insurance company. All of their core business is based on our solution. In this case, it's a lot around knowledge management, their call center stuff, handling insurance policies, etc. It's all done there. If I take something completely different, Fortress, as it says there, Fortress is a company that does building management, property management. A complete different area, obviously, but have a full-blown application where they manage about 600 buildings here in Europe. LTL Wood Products, they are a wholesale organization that sells wood timber, and they built a complete portal where their partners can actually look at inventory, order new wood, etc., etc. So again, completely different solution. And that's the whole interesting thing about WEM. It doesn't matter what you want to build, you can build it, which obviously brings on the question, so what is there something that you cannot build? Well, there are always things that you can't build, I guess, although from a functionality point of view, we can do everything. I know that Cheno asked me a couple of months ago, you know what, we have a customer here that wants to create a new cryptocurrency. Can we do that with the WEM platform? And my answer was, well, yeah, you can from a functional point of view. However, cryptocurrency requires very specific hardware. We don't have that, and we don't want to have that either. So that is one of the things that you wouldn't build with the WEM platform. I always use the example of NASA. If the NASA is doing calculations for the next, Mars lander to calculate trajectories, how should we send that Mars lander? I probably wouldn't do it in WEM, because there is so many calculations that I don't think it's going to be very efficient. It could be done actually, if you really wanted to, but so there are a few things, but these are the extremes. In general, if you look at use cases, CRM stuff, lots of call management, insurance stuff. There we are very active in healthcare, logistics, name it, and we will probably have customers that do that. We're working today on, for instance, innovation platform. We're working on a portal for an organization that is doing risk mitigation for loans that banks want to close. Name it, and we're working on it. So just a few areas. So when is it interesting to look at WEM? Well, first of all, if you have limited development ability. Now, I guess you guys will not be in this particular area. I think you probably have the development ability, but very often it's not there or not enough. You need custom software. You can do it the traditional way, which takes lots of people, lots of time, or you can use WEM and do it very fast with very few people. Another area where we are very active and successful is extending commercial off-the-shelf software. And a project that we are doing right now, for instance, a company that uses SAP, they need to have an extension there. To build that is very expensive, takes a long time. Or you use WEM, what they're doing. Just connect to SAP, use cheaper resources, and build something way faster. Do you need to deliver something in time? Do you want to be very agile? You can do this. Because everything is a lot faster, the cost obviously is going to be a lot lower as well. Another big reason companies want to go from CapEx to OpEx, right? I want to move to operational cost. And that's exactly what WEM does, based on the license model that we have that I'll explain in a little bit. You need mobile applications, shadow IT support, all of these things. If one of these things that you see here, if you run across it or your customers run across it, WEM would be an excellent solution. So what we're saying is you can build applications without the technology that you would normally use, which means we're very disruptive. Sometimes that scares people a little bit, or even worse, they don't believe that we can do it. And that's actually easy because then we can prove it. And that goes pretty deep. If I need to integrate with external systems using REST or SOAP or whatever, it already sounds technical. Non-technical people are very, intimidated by that. But it's actually just point and click, drag and drop, and you have that integration on enterprise level, right? It's not just a very simple application. I can and we do build applications that are being used enterprise-wise by tens of thousands of users. That is actually business critical, and so we have all of the features that you need to do that. And it is a platform that has everything in one solution. And I'll come back to that on the next slide, I think, because it's not just the platform to develop it; it's everything that you would need as well to make that possible. And finally, as I said, a couple of times, it is a no-code application development platform. You don't need to know any development knowledge. You can't even develop. A few exceptions where if you really want to, we can make that possible. There are some areas where you can, but there's no code needed to build applications. Now, and if you go to some of our competition, most of our competition actually is still the low-code world. Remember that I said before this, let's say the previous wave, or our predecessors, if you will. They have lots of tools where you can also visually put together an application. But at some point, to hook everything up together, to connect everything, you need to start coding. There's no way around it. With WEM, there's only one interface, one tool, and you use that one tool to build everything. And I'll show you in a little bit. So, some of the most important features that we usually mention. I'll start in the top left corner. No code, I've explained that. Complex applications, I've talked about that. All applications are HTML5 based. They are responsive, so you build them and they run on any HTML5 browser, on your desktop, on your mobile device. It all works. You build in real time, which means if I make a change, I immediately see the changes, if I want to, of course, so I can see the effect of what I'm doing. It is an all-in-one solution. It does come with all of the hosting and security and storage and everything that I'll talk about in the next slide, actually. Do you want to have mobile applications? You can do that. We can help you build native applications, native mobile applications that can be published to the Google Play Store or Apple's App Store. It is very much business-driven, very much process-driven. The way that you build applications is actually using what we call flowcharts, which I will show you. So as long as I know what my business logic look like, if I know what my business process is, and I can draw it, for instance, on a white screen or on a piece of paper, you can build an application in WEM. It's as simple as that. And one very powerful part of the platform is the integration part. We integrate, basically using all of the default standards and protocols that are out there, whether that is SOAP or REST or OData. If you want to import or export to or from Excel, if you want to use single sign-on to connect to, I don't know, Active Directory, or maybe use the social networks to give people access to your application, all of that is readily available. So we have everything that you would ever need. So what you get is what we call the modeler. So the modeler is the one piece that I will show you. That's where I build my application. If you start building, there are no limits. You can build anything. You can build as many applications as you want. There are no limits on any of the resources that you would ever need. Everything is included. There are no extra payments. You just pay one thing, and that is the license to use the software, which is based on usage, which I'll explain later on. And that's it. So you get all of the hosting, all of the storage that you need, the bandwidth. We do monthly pen tests, so everything is extremely secure. All of the integration features. We have an SLA that talks about response times, that talks about availability. Out of the box, you get an escrow agreement that you can use. Obviously, we are compliant with many of the certifications that you would need. There is a backup and recovery. There is a how do you call that? Disaster recovery. We have all of that. Yeah. Anything that you can think of. Now, if you would compare that to traditional environment, you don't only need the developers. You still need people here that work with WEM, right? But you would need to buy the servers. You would need to have admins that manage the servers. You need to buy, all the tooling that you need, whether that is Visual Studio or you need testing tools or you need, DevOps tools or whatever. You don't need anything. With WEM, you just pay for the users of the application, and that pays for everything that you see right here. So, having said that, the best way to explain what WEM is all about, and I have half an hour, is to do a demo. I will do it fast, so that there is some time left for you guys to ask me some questions if you want to. This is, by the way, this is just a screenshot of something that I was working on before. So let me open up the WEM modeler. So here we are. I'm going to start a new application. I'm going to start entirely from scratch. So let's do, I don't know, demo, what is it? 23.8.80. That's today. And let's put it in here. You can forget about this. It's not really important. So this is, as I said, the WEM model. This is the application that you use to actually build the applications. There are a few components. I'm not going to go over all of them. The most important one, I guess, is the flowcharts. That's where the magic happens. That is where you build all of your functionality. Obviously, you need a data model for any application. There are some application stuff for menu items, etc. A couple of areas where you define, for instance, SOAP services that you want to use, or OData. If you want to use single sign-on, is all stuff that you could define over here. But let's just build something, and I'll do what I do quite often: build a small CRM application, because everybody understands what CRM is all about, and it allows me to show some of the things that I think are important for you to know. And again, I will do it fairly quickly. So I'm going to start with the list, call it companies, and that's basically creating the data model. You can create very simple models, obviously, but if you want to have a really complex one, no problem whatsoever. We have applications that have 800-900 tables, or lists as we call them, with all sorts of references, so that is absolutely possible. There are no limits there. So in this list, I'm going to create a number of fields that I would need for my application. There's validation in there, so I can check whether this is a valid email address. I'm going to use some address information, address, and I'm just going to keep everything fairly standard. City, oops. City. Question, or is someone just unmuting? Okay, so obviously I can create all sorts of fields, right? I just created a bunch of text fields right now, but I can create numeric fields. There could be float points, integers, booleans, date fields. I can actually time spans. I can store files, references to set of primary keys, etc., and some things that we will touch in a few minutes. So I have a very, very basic model, right? Only one table. So let's look at that flowchart, because this is where most of the stuff happens. There's one flowchart always available. That's the home flowchart that needs to be there. And this is where I create my application. And this could be something that is an algorithm, could be a calculation, it could be a process flow, could be anything, right? Now I'm doing a very simple flow where I am basically going to create a small application. And the way I do that is by dragging and dropping these nodes on the canvas and telling the system, when you're done with this particular node, go to the next node. So these nodes, the blue ones, are user interaction nodes. These are, pages, forums, pop-up windows, everything that is interactive. That's over here. Oh. Companies overview. Let's call it like that. The gray ones deal with flowcharts themselves. There are decision nodes that say, if this condition is true, then go to this part in my flowchart. If not, go to another part. The green ones deal with data, from adding data to deleting data, to selecting rows, looping over things, storing data. The gray ones all deal with integration, whether it is integration with, based on SOAP or REST or data, but could also be importing or exporting from Excel, generating PDFs or Word documents, sending out emails, printing, anything with the outside world. Single sign-on features if you want to. There's actually the red one is it's a messaging node. We'll we'll skip that. But this doesn't seem like a lot, but this is actually all you need to build the most complex application that you want. So what I'm doing right here is I am creating my application. And as I said earlier on the slides, there was a remark that says real-time development. What we mean by that is the following. In my flowchart, I can actually test my flowchart and see how this flowchart works. So I can hit the preview button. It opens up my application, and obviously there's nothing there, right? Because I haven't built anything yet. Oops, that's not fun. I haven't built anything yet. That's the only thing. You know, I go to start and I show a form or a page that says company's overview. So let's look at that. This brings up an editor where I can create my screen, and I'm going to keep it all very straightforward. Here on the right-hand side is the data pane where I can access all of the data. So if I have set up, you know, SOAP services or data services or whatever, I can actually access external data very easily. And here are all the UI components that you need. Again, it doesn't look like a lot, but you can build the most complex interfaces right from this particular screen. So the first thing I want to do when I open my CRM application is basically show a list of all the companies that are in my database. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say show this, well, show everything, why not? Right, so I've created my list, I hit save. Now, if I go back to my preview, you will see that this has updated in real time. I didn't do an update of my or a reload of this particular tab. It automatically updated, and that's what we mean with real-time development, right? I can immediately see what the effect is on the things that I'm building. So let me complete that very simple CRM application. One thing I would want to do, obviously, is I want to add new rows to my table, right? So I'm going to specify that. There's what we call the list node. It adds a row. Oh, sorry. And I'm going to say from that form, I need an exit, and I'll do that through a button. And we'll call it new company. I put that button in what we call the button bar, which is at the bottom of the screen. Add some nice artwork so that it looks a little bit better. So I've added a row. Then I want the system to show me the details of that company that I just created. Right? So let's look at that. I'm going to have the same editor that I had before, but instead of showing a list of all the companies in the database, I now want to create a form to enter the details. So again, I look at my list here, but now I'm going to create a form where I want to edit the name, email address, city. Yeah, just these simple 4 things. I hit the save button, so this is stored. Next thing I want to do is I want to save this. So from this particular form, I want to say, you know, save changes. So that's a new button. So I'll save, again, put it in what we call the button bar. And I just love the old school copy. I'm done. I go back to Commerce Overview. I could actually add also, well, let's do that. A cancel button. Why not? Maybe I want to cancel something. So that I need the second button here that says cancel. I'll put it in there on the left. Also, some nice artwork here. And I'll make it red. And when I'm done canceling, I want to go back to my overview. So the flow of my application is very simple, right? Give me an overview of the list of the companies in my database. Give me the ability to add a new company, show the details, and then save the details or cancel, right? So if I now go back to my preview, you see that a button has appeared. I click on the button. I'll say it's us, it's WEM, RTK at WEM.io. Oops, that's not right. WEM.io. That's where I'm sitting right now, in Amsterdam. I hit the save button, should bring me back to the overview. I got an error message. Well, that is correct, because if you remember correctly, I did it pretty fast, but here in my list, for this particular field email address, there was a validation that I put in that field that it had to be a correct email address, right? So I ended on purpose a comma instead of a dot. So let's fix that. Now it should be correct. And I have a list, an entry in my list here, right? Application almost done. I realized that, oh wow, I want to edit the details. So how do I do that? I want to click on that row. Well, very simple. So now I'm going to make a change to my application. In this particular list, there's a property that specifies, what do you do when you click on a row? Well, the default is that there's nothing you can do, but I could also say, well, you know what? Give me an exit, and in my flowchart, I'm going to use that exit so that I can go from the overview directly to the details form using that exit that I just created. And that's all I need to do. And now, as you see, if I hover over this line, I can click on it, I get the details, and I store information. And now I'm thinking, oh, you know what? Actually, I need something else here. I want to see exactly where this is. So, as I said, there are a number of components that you can use to create your application. There are also things that we call widgets. Now, I'm going to add a few, just to give you an idea of what you can do. Widgets are user interface components that you can use in your application. Loading here, right? So, a color picker, process steps. Maybe you need a tree component. Maybe you want to build a dashboard and you need some charts, or you want to have a calendar widget, or maybe you need a reCAPTCHA widget because somebody needs to enter some data. Capture an image if you use this on a mobile device. So there are all sorts of widgets that you can use for advanced UI stuff. So one of the things I'm going to use is actually I'm going to use a map, and I'm going to make that responsive, so as wide as it can. And I'm going to connect this map to the data of this company, so that I actually show the company on the map here. And to do that, it's actually very straightforward. I'm going to select the address and the city, and that should be enough. City. I save this. And now if I go back to my tab, since I left it open on this particular page, it should actually show the map. Well, here you go. And now you have to trust that this is actually where I am sitting right now. So that was simple, right? There is an error that I can generate now. That's the last thing, and then I will show you. Because if I now create a new company, I will get an error message. There you go. And the reason why, from a logic point of view, it makes sense, because this map shows me information of this company. But if I create a new company, there is no information yet. So let me show you another component that we have. And I can show you two things. That's what we call a conditional component. That means show me something based on a particular condition. Now, in WEM, the thing that comes closest to, I guess, programming is, using expressions. expressions. And these are, very similar and sometimes identical to functions that you use in Excel, in spreadsheets. So should be pretty familiar to lots of people. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to say, well, you know what? If there are no spelling errors, if the address has a value and the city has a value, when that's the case, then show me the map. So I'm going to take the map and put it inside that component. So now I will only show the map if there is actually data. So let me save that, cancel. Right, if I click on this, it shows me the map because there's information there. If I click on new company, it doesn't show me the map. And actually, I can enhance this because I can say, you know what? If we don't meet the condition that there are values, show me also something when we don't meet the condition. And I'll have a message, not enough data to display map. Right? So let me go back here. I say new company, and now I get this message. Right? So, I can make this really complex, but let's now assume that I'm done. The next step in my development process is, what lots of people are talking about in terms of DevOps. We don't have that, or we have it actually integrated in the platform. Right now, the modeler, the things that you see right here that I've been doing, that is done in the modeler in what we call the test environment or development environment, whatever you want to call it, the development environment. Let's say everybody can use it. You can go to wem.io, create an account, you get access to this modeler, and you can build the applications in the same way that I did it. You don't need any license or whatever. You can do that. You can build the most complex applications, all of the integrations, everything that you want to do. There are no limits. You can do that. There are no costs associated with it. There is a catch, though. Always a catch, and that is I can only view the application from the development environment. So I cannot share this with other users. The only thing that I can do is I can actually put together a team, because I can work with multiple people on the same project, on the same application. So I can actually invite people to work with me on this application in parallel, and they could all see the application on their machine, but that's it. So what you usually want to do is, when you start testing, you want to publish this to a test environment or a staging environment, as we call it, and that's exactly what I'll show you. Demo 230818. Let's call it like that. Staging. So now I am defining the URL of my test environment, and I can do the same thing for my production environment, right? And you can put anything in there that you want. Could be your own domain name. I've saved this. This is my project information. And now, in the next step in my application, I've tested it. It works. I'm happy to share it with a bunch of test users. I can now actually publish the application. So this is, maybe the DevOps part, if you will. So I'm basically saying, publish my my application to the staging. I'm not ready to publish it to live yet because I first want people to test it. I say publish, and what happens now is that the application is actually being copied to a separate infrastructure. There's a physical different infrastructure. It also means that all of the data that I entered in my test environment does not appear in that environment, at least not the first time. So this URL, if I now go to this URL, we should see if that works. There you go. You see the same application that we just built. Obviously, no data because it's a new environment. I'm using it for the first time. So publishing and going to a different environment is very straightforward. To make this a little bit more complex and to explain a few things, this is what we call a project. The application that we call the project. The actual instance of the project is what we call a portal. So this runs on a portal. Now, I can actually have multiple portals. Why would I want that? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, the look and feel of the application is specified per portal. And we do that by using what we call master templates. So I can select another master template, save this. And now if I go here, I probably need to refresh. I think it will probably look different. Yeah, just some other colors. But every portal can have a different look and feel. Now, that's interesting because maybe you want to create an application that multiple customers want to use, but they all want to have their own branding. What I can do is I can actually say, you know what, add a new portal. We'll just call it new portal, whatever. And I assign the master template, the user interface to that particular customer, and they will have their own look and feel. They will have their own portal, that's their own URL that you have to specify. So now I can build the application once and use it for multiple customers or multiple departments in the same company. I can actually specify if I want to share data. So if it's within one company and people want to have, for instance, their own branding within every department, they can still share the data. If we're talking about different customers, obviously you don't want to share the data. Another thing that you do per portal is specify language. Out of the box, every application is multilingual, and you can specify how to deal with languages. Do you want to use the default language based on the browser? Do you want to do a language based on IP addresses? Do you want to fix a language? Do you want to have users select what language they want to use, etc.? You can specify all of the behavior again per portal. So that is a pretty powerful concept. So that is WEM. Now there's one final thing, and I'm looking at the time. I'm doing pretty good. One thing that I want to show because we're really strong at it, and that is integration. I mentioned that it's easy to integrate. I've published my application. It's running up here. It's all fine. I'm going to work on the next version of my application, and the next version means that I want to pull in some data from my external party, for instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something that is out there on the internet. I'm just using an online database somewhere just to get tested. As you can see, I'm not making things up. I'm just using an existing database. So I need this URL. Copy. Okay. So now I'm setting up a connection to an external data service. I need that URL that I just picked up. I know that there are no username and password, and I'm just going to give that a name so that I can use it within my application. It's importing the service information. As you see, it's all very fast. And now I actually have access to an external database server, to an external application, and all of the data that's in there. Right? So I can look at the customers, and that's all of the information that's out there. So how do I use that? Very simple. First of all, I'm going to reload my data pane because I made changes to the data. And you now see that I actually have that information available here, right in my application. So let me put that in here. First of all, I'm going to put a block in here so that we can do it differently. Don't like that. Going to do this. App panel. Integration test, and that is info. And what I'm doing here, I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm going to look at something here. I don't know what. Let's just pick. Yeah, let's pick customers. That probably has data in there. So I'm just going to show a list of whatever's in that database. I have no idea, but we're going to find out right now. So company name, somebody contact, country maybe, I don't know, phone number, region, whatever. Just pick a few. Save. Now I go back to my preview, go to the details, and as you see, I now am pulling data out of an external server somewhere on the internet and using it in my application. Obviously, it doesn't make sense in my CRM application, right? But I can use that in any way that I want to. I can create the functionality to click on this and look at details. I think I somewhere made maybe I can find it actually. I made a small demo. If I can quickly find it, and I'll show you with some dashboards. I'm not sure if it's this one. Actually, I think this is using the same database. No. Reports, orders. Now I'm just trying out a few things here that's using the same database. That's not a report, is it? well, one final try. Well, here you go. This is a very simple flowchart based on that same OData connection that I just showed you. I didn't really work on this an awful lot. Just this took me like, I think, 5 minutes to put together, just to see if I could get that sort of information out of that external database. And I could, so that was proof enough for me. So, and now obviously I close too much. You always see that. Modeler. Go back to the modeler. So that's basically an overview of the things that you can do with WEM. So I've shown you how to, quickly put together an application using flowcharts. Some very basic user interaction stuff. How to work with the modeler in terms of publishing your application to a production environment, to a staging environment, and it would work obviously exactly the same for a production environment. Talk about multiple portals. Give you a very quick impression of how easy it is to integrate with an external database or an external system. And mainly, I did not code one single letter. Everything was done using drag and drop, and basically putting everything together. Yeah, I guess that as far as demo goes, I mean, I can make it really complex and build lots of more stuff. But questions, things that you want to know that are not clear, that I can help you